Hi everyone, my name is Egypt Worthy and welcome to my community and words and pictures presentation. The link underneath is just a short video that I took of the community that I currently live in right now. So you can click on that link now or afterwards just to watch that if you want to. All right, so our agenda for today, we're going to look at the demographic description of my community. Then we're going to dive into just some of the institutions within my community, look at the map of my community, and then talk about the good community assessment in regards to the article that we all read. First things first, the community we're going to be looking at for me is going to be the city of Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I currently live in Germantown right now, so we're going to talk a little bit about Germantown area as well. The background is Love Park for my folks who are from Philly or, as we say, newcomers to Philly. It's downtown. It's a great tourist spot where people love to just take pictures, sit. But yeah, if you haven't visited Love Park yet, you should definitely give it a try. All right, so first we're going to look at race and gender. A lot of this information was not a huge shock for me. I think what was very interesting was the comparison between just looking at Philadelphia as a whole and then looking at the current zip code that I live in right now. As you can see where I live at right now, which is right here. The Black community is at 92.6%. In comparison to just Philadelphia as a whole, the Black community is at 40.1%, whereas white people are second and Hispanic community are third, similar to where I live at right now. But as far as if you're looking at the purple, there's a lot more purple where I live at versus just looking at Philadelphia as a whole. And in regards to just gender, again, this isn't very inclusive information. However, as we can see, there's more females versus more males within the city of Philadelphia. Looking at the population, we can see that year 2000, there was a lot more individuals versus year 2010. And here we are in 2019, roughly in about that 34,000. In my opinion, I think this is a lot higher, especially with a lot of people moving to Philly and coming from different states, especially the younger folk who are coming here for school. And then in regards to age, as we can see again, females is pretty high, up more than males. And again, in my opinion, I think as far as just like being roughly around this, like this, the 20s, mid 20s is due to a lot of just people coming in to go to school here. And then if we're looking at the crime, one of the things that I found most interesting was there's a lot of theft here in Philadelphia. We'll see in the next slide when it breaks it down by type. But yeah, I laughed a little bit when I saw the arson data because I was just like, oh, okay, like that's very interesting. But in comparison to like the murder rate, robbery rate, and just overall city data, Philadelphia, there is a lot of crime. But I'll go to this graph that I was talking about where it breaks it down by type, which is something that I like because it really just dives into like the different categories there are. And just looking at it again, theft is very high, whereas arson is very, very small. I think that might be an issue more so in like the rural, maybe suburban areas, but in the city, not so much. As well as like I was a little shocked by like the burglaries, 10.2%. I don't watch the news very often, but I do hear more so about, rapes, murders here in Philadelphia. Not so much about the robberies. So that was new information for me. As far as education, we can see here is as far as just educational attainment in 2019, high school is pretty up there as far as in comparison to Pennsylvania. And then if we look at school enrollment, we can see like the numbers are pretty consistent as far as from grade 1 up until college undergrad. So I think this was quite interesting as far as just like looking at the data in comparison to Philadelphia versus Pennsylvania. And so next we have the poverty data, which again, I was not shocked. There's a huge homeless issue here in Philadelphia, whether you're from here or not. I'm pretty sure if you've been downtown, you can definitely see that there's a homeless issue here in Philadelphia. Looking at the data, I think the most interesting part for me was just looking at the breakdown by age of as far as like male residents and female residents. Um, Again, I wasn't shocked by this data due to just working at a youth homeless shelter in Germantown and coming in contact with young people who were between the ages of 18 to 21 who were homeless. Something else I thought was interesting was just looking at the poverty status of native born and foreign born. And as you can see, like as far as just looking at the above poverty level in the green, there's a lot going on versus below. As well as we have it breakdown by just within race. The Black community is very high, whereas in second place you have Hispanic community, and then white community you have in third. So yeah, a lot of this information was not new, but it was still very helpful to know. And then we have the religion breakdown. Again, it's very shocked to see that none was higher than Catholic, because I know we have a huge population of people who do identify with the Catholic religion. So that was quite interesting. But again, a lot of this information was not new. But yeah, as far as just like looking at the difference between none and Catholic, I thought Catholic would be number one and none would be number two. And now we're going to look at the institutions within my community. So in Philly, we have Love Park again. Pride is a huge thing here in Philly. Eagle fans, it's a thing here in Philadelphia as far as with football. I'm from here and I'm not an Eagles fan. But for folks who are here or from maybe from a different state, the Eagles community is very, very large. We have City Hall, we have the Cathedral. Again, Catholic religion is pretty high here in Philadelphia. And then also we have 440, which is the school district here in Philadelphia, and then also PNC Bank. Downtown, we have a lot of banks on the strip downtown. And then now we're going to look at a map of my community. So again, my community that we're looking at is Philadelphia, and I just wanted to throw a few pictures out there just to show a few of the places that I love to frequent. We have Max's Steaks, which is a huge place here in Philly as far as just like getting a cheesesteak. Please do not go to Geno's or Jimmy's, or I forgot what those other places are, but please do not go there. Those are tourist spots. If you want a cheesesteak, a really good cheesesteak, please go to Max. It's off of Broad and Erie. Then we have Fred's Water Ice. Water Ice is a huge thing here in Philly, as well as just like, I wanted to throw the Skyline. It's beautiful if you're on the expressway, just like, driving through Philadelphia, as well as Penn's Landing is a pretty cool waterfront place to, just to sit. And, they have different concerts sometimes there. So I just wanted to throw a few of those things out there as well. And now we're going to look at a map of where I live. So I live in Germantown area. Again, if you watch the video, you'll get to see what the area I live in looks like. But again, I live roughly near like Cheltenham Mall, Willow Grove area, Logan, Ogons, Fern Rock. Like, if you're familiar with like Manayunk, I'm close to there. So I'm kind of like in that in the middle, I would say. And then now we're gonna dive into good community assessment. The article I really enjoyed reading. As far as just like thinking about what is a good community, in my opinion, I don't think any community is perfect. However, looking at the criteria, I guess you would say my community isn't a good community. On this side, I pulled a few things that I felt were a part of my community, and then a few of the things on this side I felt that were not part of my community. So if we're looking at the article and really just looking at the categories presented by their standards, I would say my community isn't a good community. However, there are a lot of amazing things about my community. There's a lot of things that need to be improved. And one of the biggest changes I think that I would make would be just far as just like there's a lot of gentrification going on within my community. So I think for me, one of the biggest things that I would do is create more equitable opportunities for the natives that live here in Philadelphia. I'm all for inclusivity. I'm all for getting to know new people from different places, but I think a lot of the opportunities that are being brought here in Philadelphia are not more so for the people who've been living here for a very long time, Black and brown folk who've been living here for 40, 50 years, is more so for the people who look different, you know. And so you have a lot of people moving in, a lot of more white people moving in from the suburbs into the city, and a lot of new apartments, being built. And again, we have a huge homelessness um, issue here in Philadelphia. And so for me, I think it's just more so about just making sure we don't forget about the people who've been living here for forever, and rather than making these new opportunities and just make it more accessible for the people who are guests, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, that is the end of my presentation. Here are my references. Um, I look forward to watching your presentations, and hope you enjoyed this. Bye.